Hello, everyone. Wow. Fun fact, about 9 years ago, I was heading up the CMO team at Microsoft in Sweden. And I got this email from a guy called Richard Steiber. He was at MTG, and I knew him because I used to work at Viasat. And so he asked me if we wanted to sponsor this movement called Women in Tech. And I was like, absolutely, of course, let's do that. So we were one of the first sponsors. But for various reasons, I couldn't go to the conference that year. And since then, I've been fighting so hard to get a ticket for this event. I even had to become a speaker to be able to experience Women in Tech. Jesus. Whew. So, you too? Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay, it's an amazing movement. Since then, I quit Microsoft 7 years ago. I started my own business. And I do these talks about building trust in times of change quite regularly. And I could have made things easy for myself by giving you one of those talks. But the thing is, I want to give you something else. This movement is too important. This is too powerful. You guys are too important to get a speech that you can Google. So instead, I'm going to give you something different. And bear with me, because I've never given this speech to anyone. I rarely talk about this, and so yeah, just bear with me. I'm doing this because I'm sure that many of you can relate. And I want to do what I can to inspire you, to empower you, to go out and be that change that we so need in the world. Okay? So let's do this. We're going to go back in time, like about 20 odd years. In the beginning of my career, actually, my first job was in the media industry. I was so proud to get that job. And I had the best boss. And she was a woman. She is a woman. Katarina Svensson is now at June. She was amazing. She saw my strengths. She saw what I could be. And she empowered me. So I did really well. 2 years into that company, I was awarded or positioned in the leadership team. And that's pretty early on in your career, you know, 2 years in to get into the leadership role. By then, Katarina had moved on, and I reported to the CEO. The problem here is that this was not a good team. This was a dysfunctional team. We had owners that didn't have a clear strategy of where to take the business. And we had a CEO at the time who wasn't capable of setting a plan, setting a strategy to move us forward. And you know what happens in those teams when it's unclear? And you have a bunch of young people who are driven and ambitious and no leadership. That means you have a bunch of people who are struggling for power, not collaborating, not communicating. It was toxic. It was a dysfunctional team. So there I was coming into this. I was doing fine. I had Katarina's hand in my back. I was doing good things, and I felt that things were okay, despite the fact that the team was not so good. Anyway, along comes the Christmas party. I think you know where this is heading. The sort of informal leader, as you get in these kind of situations, you get someone who wants to take the lead, and the informal leader was the sales guy, because sales equals power and status and stuff. At least it was like that in that company. So anyway, on the dance floor, he comes up, he started to make a move, touched me in inappropriate places. He grabbed my ass on the dance floor. And the thing is, I reacted super strongly, and I reflected about that afterwards, because I don't do that. I'm the kind of person who, you know, when things happen and they go wrong, and you think afterwards, oh shit, I should have said that. I should have done that. I should have said, you know, that's the kind of person I am. I'm a little bit slow in those situations. But I reacted super strongly. And I totally told him off. And the reason I reacted so strongly was because I was prepared. And that in itself is so sad. It wasn't the first time. So I was prepared. I saw that coming. I was prepared. The second thing that I reflect on, why I reacted so strongly, was I got furious with him because he had a wife and small kids. I was not furious because he overstepped my boundaries, because that had happened before and I was used to it. How sad is that? I got pissed off because he was about to cheat on his wife. Okay, the story could have ended there, but that's where the nightmare started. Because back in the office, in the leadership room, he gave me hell in the worst way. And the thing is, I stepped on his ego there on the dance floor. Everyone saw, everyone heard. So he had to get his revenge, and he started behaving extremely badly. And you know how that looks in the office. That means he forgets to include me in the email. He forgets to invite me to the meeting. He interrupts me when I'm speaking. He deliberately skipped my point on the agenda. All of these things. I perceived myself as a pretty strong woman. But I am still today astonished by how quickly he made me small, how fast that went. And it's a realization for me that this can happen to anyone. And it's crazy how quickly it goes. So anyway, that behavior went on. I remember preparing for those meetings, like really preparing. I prepared for fights. And whenever he did those things, I confronted him in the room. I was like, excuse me, it's my point on the agenda. Excuse me, I'm talking. Would you please not interrupt? You know, all of these things. But you can never win a situation like that. I kept becoming less self-secure, feeling smaller and smaller, started sleeping badly. And I let this go on for so long before I asked for help. So that's another reflection here is, for me, asking for help meant I couldn't make it. I was too immature, too young. I failed. Asking for help to me there and then was failing. So I didn't. Until I realized this is really affecting my health. And finally, I went to HR. I told them what happened. And HR said, Karin, this is not good. We're going to invest in you. We're going to give you coaching sessions. We're going to give you, like a program to strengthen you. And I remember thinking, wow, this is such a good company. They invest in me. But the problem was never me, of course. But we didn't touch the problem. And that is so, so, so sad. The way I finally sort of got out of this situation was when I one day gathered strength and courage to just go to him, knock on his door. It was back in the days when we sat in separate rooms. I knocked on his door. I had prepared myself with a piece of paper with every, thing that he had done. I'd written it down so that I could be super detailed with him, explaining that after the Christmas party, you did this and that. And last Tuesday on the meeting, you did this. And the Tuesday before, you did that. I even remember what weekday we had those meetings. He was like in shock. He's like, what? I never thought about that. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. And to this day, I still wonder if it was deliberate or not. You never know. But in any case, this story has left me with a lot of reflection on us as humans, how we behave when we feel threatened, when we feel worried and scared, because it has a lot to do with that. As you know, this kind of behavior is extremely costly. When we allow for this to happen in organizations, we can see in research that people actually intentionally decrease their work effort because they worry, they think about this, it decrease the quality of their work. When we allow this kind of behavior in the workforce, we intentionally decrease the quality of our work. And the last one here is the craziest one, actually, because just like I did, we spend so much time worrying. We lose time thinking about how are we going to avoid this situation? What did I do to deserve this? How can I get out of this, etc. And interesting enough, nowadays when we can actually research and see what happens in our brain when we are experiencing various situations, nowadays we can see that when we feel excluded, when we feel like we're not a part of the group, that feeling actually activates the same parts of our brain that is activated when we experience physical pain. So it's really, really strong emotions. And I think a lot about that when I think of the people in the room that saw this behavior. I'm not blaming them, really. I'm not blaming them because I have probably done the same. We have such an urge to be included in the group that we allow for these horrible behaviors to happen to avoid risking to be excluded. These are things we need to be aware of. We need to think about this, and we need to do everything we can to not allow for this to happen. Okay, since that situation, at that first job that I had back in the day, I've had a really fun career working in various organizations that are highly affected by change and digitalization. So the media industry, I was there for many, many years. It was back then when we actually thought, talking about tech, we thought that we would order pizzas through the remote control. It was that long ago. My years at Microsoft were amazing, and I was so pleased to listen to Atife this morning because I saw the side of Atife that she shared with you in her talk this morning. About 7 years ago, I made one of the scariest decisions I've ever made, and that is to leave the comfort zone of being employed. I had been employed for 20 years, and I decided to quit my lovely job. I really enjoyed Microsoft, but I knew that I had more things to do in life. So I quit and I started my own business. And since then, I am an advisor, a speaker, and I'm on several boards investing as well. And I wrote books, or have written 2 books. I never thought I would write books. So this was like the biggest surprise for me ever when I quit Microsoft and I got an email from the publisher asking if I wanted to write a book. But learning from all of these experiences of being in teams that are heavily sort of affected by digitalization and change, and seeing what that does to us as humans in teams, led me to writing these books and learning a lot about trust. Because that was exactly what was lacking in that leadership team, in that room. There was no trust whatsoever. And so if we flip that and we think about what can we achieve if we have high levels of trust, there's lots of research on this topic. And the one that I like the most is from Paul J. Zak. He's written a lot of books, and I can recommend them all to you. What he does is, you can see on the picture here is the hormone oxytocin. And one of the things he does is he measures the levels of oxytocin we give out when we are in various situations. And in his research, he's found that teams that have high levels of trust experience less stress, more energy, they have higher productivity, they have 13% less sick leave, more engagement, more satisfaction in their lives in general, and people are up to 40% amounts less burnt out. So this is amazing stuff. And I want to share with you just 4 simple ways to just establish trust, because this is so important. Normally, I talk about 8 ways to raise trust. We're going to do 4 now, and the first one is so powerful, so easy, we forget it all the time. It is just giving positive feedback to people, really making sure that we make your colleagues know that you are doing an amazing job. You guys know each other in the audience, many of you. I want us to take 30 seconds, turn to your neighbor, and give that person just a compliment, a quick compliment. Go ahead, 30 seconds, go. Yeah, okay. I regret it already. How in the world am I going to get your attention back now? Isn't that amazing though? It's so easy, and I really hope that you had the chance to just give a little bit of appreciation to your next door neighbor. It does a ton of wonders, I can tell you. So the second one is obviously making sure that you never withhold information. Information is interesting. Communications, we tend to communicate and we think that we are clear, but we are often not. So focus on dialogue. Focus on asking questions. Did you understand what I just said? What did you perceive out of this meeting? What did you hear out of that talk? So dialogue, communication, so crucial. Building relationships, this is like the essence of everything. It's so important. And we know that if I know that this colleague of mine is pregnant or that man is going through a divorce, I understand and I can help out. So getting to know each other a little bit outside is so important. So do that. If you're a leader, invest in time to get your team to get to know each other. The last one, so important, to open up, show vulnerability. When we do it as leaders, when we do it as individuals, we also allow for others to feel okay to do it. And this is because I don't want you to make the same mistake that I did back then, thinking that I had to be perfect, thinking that asking for help would be a failure. Open up. You won't believe how much support you get when you do that. So I'll end just with these last two things. Do please reflect on how this fear of being excluded can make us silent and how dangerous that is. And please do practice building trust so that you can become brave through fighting those fears. I believe it's all about practice, and I believe that we can all be brave if we are aware of our feelings and our emotions. Please do connect. Thank you so much for having me today.